Did you know that there are mummies in Palworld? But not for the reason that you think. The Pal Deck is full of fascinating and sometimes disturbing facts about life on Palpagos Island. Like the fact that the mummies are just unfortunate victims of the vicious Killamari. An adorable floating squid that likes to attach itself to the head of unsuspecting victims and, juicing them. If that doesn't keep you up at night, the next fact probably will. Pals can and do turn against their humans. Domestication is a tricky task, even when you have a magical compliance sphere apparently. Now, we all know that some pals have a little bit of an attitude, so I guess it should come as no surprise that they may one day turn against you. But that doesn't make it any less terrifying. The Lifmunk, a cute squirrel-like creature, is actually known for taking out its master after it learns to use weapons. And the Galeclaw has been known to let go, dropping humans from a great height to their demise. Which kind of makes sense when you learn that executioner pals are a thing. Who needs medieval torture devices when you can get pals to do the dirty work for you? The community on Palpagos Islands takes crime and punishment very seriously. If you're caught breaking the law, you may be unlucky enough to be sentenced to punishment by a hangyu, a terrifying name for a creature whose body looks like a noose. But the punishment is so much worse than you imagine. In one of the versions, the criminals would have their hair yoinked out by one of these creatures as a form of public humiliation. And for more serious crimes, the hangyu would help the criminal shrug off their skin. But I'm guessing it doesn't really mind, since pals are bloodthirsty, even without human involvement. There are a few disturbing entries in the Pal Deck that describe weird and unnecessarily cruel behavior from some of the pals. The Nightwing, for example, likes to poach other pals' offspring and then raise it as its own. That is, until they grow large enough to be eaten. Then it throws them out of the nest and hunts them. The Incinerum Noct is another creepy predator that targets baby pals. It steals them in the dead of night and then takes them back to its lair. What happens afterwards is too dark even for the Pal Deck to describe. All we know is they never return. But this behavior is not the only unusual thing about them, because pal biology is weird. And I'm not talking about the way they look or their ability to control the elements. I mean on a fundamental level. The way they function doesn't always make sense. The Mozzarina is a perfect example of this. On the surface, it's every farmer's dream. A cow-like creature that, and I quote, "Milk pours from like water from an open faucet." The only problem is the male Mozzarina seems to produce this milk as well. What is it made from? Nobody knows. But you can have it all as long as you keep calling it milk and don't ask too many questions. But before we jump to conclusions, we need to remember that Palworld is not our world, no matter how familiar it feels. In fact, it may not even be in the same dimension. Did you know that on Palpagos Islands, dogs never became man's best friend? In fact, they were never domesticated at all. According to the Pal Deck entries, the dire howl, Palworld's version of the dire wolf, used to hunt alongside humans many years ago. But in this timeline, they never became dogs, and so gradually the bond faded. And now they don't hold any special significance at all. Instead, this timeline has its own mascots, and every human on the island knows the Dinosaur never forgets. There are only 2 recorded cultural sayings that come up in the Pal Deck, and both of them refer to the Dinosaur. On Palpagos Islands, to step on a Dinosaur's tail means to enrage somebody, and to be struck by a Dinosaur's luck's bolt means to narrowly avoid being unalived. So why does a seemingly passive creature have such a reputation? It's because this thing is wild when it's angry and will chase you down to take its revenge no matter the cost. What can we take away from it? Don't mess with dinosaurs, I guess. Even though injury is rarely the end on Palpagos Islands. While pals can become weakened, injured, or sick, it's rarely a permanent or life-threatening condition. Their ability to regenerate seems almost infinite, especially in the case of pals like the Ruby, who have discovered a secret to never getting sick in the first place. Their special recipe for eternal health is eating 1 piece of charcoal every day. Unfortunately, this only seems to work for rubies, and only those living in the wild. But there is a final exit in Palworld, and here is where we learn that the Grim Reaper is your pal. It's comforting to know that you won't spend your last days on Palworld alone. You'll always have that special pal nearby. It's less comforting to know that it looks like this. Who needs doctors when you have pals that are attracted to the smell of death? The Moraith seeks out and follows pals and humans whose time is almost up. What does it do with them when they pass? Nobody knows. They've never survived to tell the tale. It certainly seems like all pals serve some kind of purpose, but some are more obvious than others since pals are living tools, pretty literally in some cases. And no, I'm not talking about their ability to man workstations. I mean, they can turn into inanimate objects. At least that's the case with the Bushi, which, according to its lore, turns into a blade when it finishes its life cycle. An actual physical sword with the soul of the old pal inside it. It's then used by the next generation of Bushi, and if any other creature attempts to use it, the soul inside will drive them mad. Another transforming pal is the Patalia, which turns into a massive plant at the end of its life cycle. It stays in this plant form for 10 years until a flower blooms and it gives birth to it again. Maybe they do this to hide from the humans, because the island has a massive poaching problem, which I guess is not surprising considering pals are incredibly valuable and often used as currency. The Pal Deck is full of stories of pals being hunted, sometimes to near extinction, for various parts. The Mao, for example, was poached because of its beautiful tail. Since it didn't shatter upon death, it was viewed as a good luck charm. The Serpent was hunted for its ability to glide on water and was used in place of a surfboard. And the Fenglobe was hunted for its beautiful fur and horns. But this doesn't last forever because pals can evolve spontaneously to defend against their attackers. The Arsox, for example, was relentlessly pursued by carnivores long ago. In response, it became so angry and full of rage, it literally evolved to be part fire. It then passed on its raging inferno abilities to all future versions. The traditional Mao is popular amongst poachers because of its tail. So conveniently, the second version of the Mao appeared, called the Mao Christ, whose tail is very fragile, forcing poachers to take care of it in captivity if they want good luck. So it should come as no surprise that pals are out for revenge. In the wild, a large portion of pals will attack humans on sight, and even eat them given the opportunity. But there are hints scattered throughout the Pal Deck that they hold a serious grudge. The Robinquiltera is always found with human bones nearby for some reason. The Azerobe is said to be outright bitter towards humanity as a whole, and even the Direhowl will now attack humans on sight. Their shared history seems to have turned a lot of pals against humans, but some pals like humans a little too much. Yes, I'm talking about Lovander, the most bizarre creature of all the pals, and it wants to be just a little bit more than friends. According to its Pal Deck, this thing initially only wanted a night out with other pals, but has recently taken a liking to humans as well. Conveniently placed as number 69, it comes out at night and will chase you for a good time if it sees you. But this may be more than a joke from the devs, and actually kind of makes sense within the context of the lore. Check out this video right here to find out why.